where I'll be tonight down in St. Pete Beach and everywhere in between. You've heard the stories about how Pinellas County is the most impacted county in the country when it comes to the implementation of this Bigger Waters Act. So to me, this is just an example of last year when I was beginning to read the stories come out about the realities of the impact is, oh my gosh, we can't have this. This is not government working for people. This is government working against people, and something has to be done. So I intend to take my background and experience, serving 4 years as the state's CFO, dealing with a number of insurance issues, the fact that I have a career of working with Republicans and Democrats in a bipartisan fashion, and this is what I do when I'm approaching a problem. First of all, get information, and Lord knows this has been the most one of the most complex situations. There are no easy answers here, but I have spoken to realtors, I've spoken to homeowners, to residents all across the county. I've spoken to chambers of commerce. I have reached out and spoken to at least 4 CEOs of Florida-based property insurance companies. We've talked to the staffs of some of the Congress people up in Washington. We've spoken to flood experts. Our team has reached out to global reinsurance representatives to find out about the reinsurance market, to think about what the possible solutions might be. And granted, I intend to go to Congress on March the 12th and to reach out. By then, it would be our great hope that the thing has been solved. But I spoke with Senator Nelson yesterday. There is a Senate proposed bill that's slowly making its way through the Senate. Good news is that he believes that the 60 votes are there to get that bill passed. But look at what's happened in Washington. That Senate bill then has to be passed back to the House, and then the House has to deal with it. And it is time for the dysfunction to stop, the partisanship to stop. This is not a partisan issue. This is about real people's lives and their futures, and whether or not potentially they can stay in their home, or as you heard from Scott, he's at the point in his life where he's ready to leave his home and maybe go into another situation, and he's got to be able to unlock the equity he has in his home at a fair price. So we've developed about 5 principles so that you understand exactly what my approach is going to be. Number 1, to stop the rate spike and stop the increases, and it's just an example of basic fairness. Look, Pinellas homeowners, it's been reported, have paid already 8 times more than we've ever had claims for over a 35+ year period of time. So don't put it on our backs that we have to make up for the fact that the flood insurance program in effect went bankrupt. So explain to us, FEMA, how you calculated these particular rates and why it is that it appears that it's on our backs when we've already done, and the whole state of Florida has already done, more than its fair share. So secondly, FEMA has to, before this law should be implemented, they've got to go back and complete their remapping studies in great detail. They have to complete the so-called affordability study so that we understand what are the consequences of implementing this law and the impact on families' budgets. And they have to also be very transparent about this, open up their calculations so people like me can be in Washington and ask some tough questions and get them to justify, and also to set up an appeals process so that if a homeowner believes that they are being incorrectly charged with a flood insurance rate, then there is an independent third party who can make a judgment as to whether or not the so-called FEMA calculated rate is even justifiable or not. The fourth thing is to increase the transparency, but also increase FEMA's accountability. So we have to simplify the appeals process. We also ought to look at the way this flood insurance these policies have been working right now. I'm hearing horror stories come out of homeowners from Hurricane Sandy in New York, in which claims have been filed and FEMA is only approving about 50% of the claim amount. So then where does that leave the homeowner? And what is the appeals process? Here in the state of Florida, if you don't agree with, first of all, the insurance company has to give you a check within a 90-day period if you have a claim, so that at least you have some cash in your pocket. And there are well-established appeals processes if you disagree with the claims adjuster from the private insurance company. And I think finally, let's talk about mitigation. We know that we live in an environment that's at risk of flood. Just maybe look around at these neighborhoods. Think about neighborhoods like Shore Acres and all of our beach neighborhoods. So in my opinion, FEMA ought to be held responsible for helping to educate homeowners about things that you can do to reduce your risk of loss. Like elevate your HVAC systems so that they are not at the risk of being subjected to flood, or being sure that you have the correct breakaway walls on your first floor so that if a flood event occurs, these breakaway walls collapse so that the water is able to flow through that ground floor elevation. Or backflow, install backflow preventers which prevent floodwaters from coming up into your housing system.